Today, we are hosted by Dr. Forrest Gomez, the Director of Conservation Medicine and Operation Grace. And we're also featuring Dr. Lorenzo Rojas-Bracho, an NMMF Senior Advisor for Vaquita Conservation. And so we will take a deep dive into the plight of the vaquita porpoise, the rarest marine mammal on the planet. So we're really excited for this one. I'm going to get started with a quick intro to Dr. Gomez. Dr. Forrest Gomez is the Director of Conservation Medicine for the National Marine Mammal Foundation. For more than 20 years, she has been committed to the care and conservation of marine mammals, from sea otters to sea lions and river dolphins. Recently, she co-founded Operation Grace, the global rescue of at-risk cetaceans and ecosystems. Her team of veterinary experts, scientists, and field biologists have been called to action to help rescue some of the world's most endangered species from extinction. Dr. Gomez believes strongly in partnering with local communities to find meaningful solutions that benefit both animals and people. She builds on her background in anthropology, which she studied at UC Berkeley, and weaves that together with her veterinary expertise, which she gained at UC Davis. We are fortunate that she leads the Foundation's conservation medicine efforts around the world. It is my great pleasure to introduce you to Dr. Forrest Gomez. Take it away.
Thank you, Celeste. Thank you so much. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today for the second of this Operation Grace Focus Scientific Snapshot series. We're thrilled to have you all here, and especially thrilled to have Lorenzo with us today. And if I'm going to set the stage just a little bit real quick in case you weren't with us at our last one, where we introduced the critical time that we really are all at right now with animals disappearing at alarming rates. New Living Planet report stated that in the past 50 years, humans have reduced the size of wildlife populations by a staggering 73%. And there is a warning that the Earth is approaching a dangerous tipping point that poses grave threats to humanity, and that we really need to have a huge collective effort in order to tackle this dual climate and nature crisis. And so our organization's response to this crisis is our program, Operation Grace, that Celeste introduced. And again, it's aimed at helping save the world's most at-risk whales, porpoises, and dolphins. And in addition to the work that we're doing on the ground in the field with our collaborators around the world, we're also hoping, as part of this effort, to share some of these stories of these incredible change makers that we have the privilege of working with, who are really truly working hand in hand with the local communities to protect these animals and the ecosystems that they rely on. Our hope is that we can provide a bit of an immersive storytelling experience for all of you. It's a little different than your classic scientific talk. And we're hoping that through that, we can take you on a journey around the world, really around the globe, to meet different veterinary experts, conservationists, scientists, and start to experience some of their firsthand stories of both crisis and hope. It's really our invitation to all of you to join us in our, quest to save what we can, one small creature at a time. And so it is my absolute pleasure to introduce Dr. Lorenzo Rojas-Bracho. It is not an accident that he is our first guest in this series. It is from our work with him and our work with the vaquita porpoise that Operation Grace and our focus on endangered species was born. For more than 30 years, Dr. Lorenzo Rojas-Bracho has been studying the vaquita porpoise, one of the rarest marine mammals on the planet, only found in the waters of his home country, Mexico. Today, Lorenzo is considered the world's foremost authority on the biology of the vaquita, based on his significant contributions to vaquita science and conservation, which have earned him global recognition and admiration. He has chaired the International Committee for the Recovery of the Vaquita since its inception in 1997, leading international efforts to protect the species and working to facilitate action by the Mexican government. Lorenzo has worked tirelessly, not just for the vaquita, but also for other endangered dolphins, porpoises, and whales, serving as the chair of various international committees and working groups. He's known by his colleagues and friends as a kind soul with a curious mind and an unwavering commitment to saving vaquitas from extinction. We are thrilled to have him join us today to tell you the story of the vaquita through his own eyes. So, with that, I would like to introduce my friend Lorenzo.
Thank you, Forrest, and thanks everybody for attending this meeting, and I hope you had a joyful Thanksgiving. But before I start, I'd like to remember my friend and colleague Armando for his enormous contribution to vaquita science, and you will hear his name throughout my talk. I would like to share a little about myself. I come from a generation introduced to the wonders and mysteries of nature through television documentaries and series like Survival and Animal World. And back then, hiking wasn't a common thing in Mexico as it is today, but my father would take us on walks through the forest near Mexico City, sometimes not so close to Mexico City, but these outings sparked my love for biology and I think more specifically for conservation. And I already had a fascination with megafauna. And during a family vacation to SeaWorld in San Diego, I was completely captivated by the orcas and dolphins. So much so, I went to the orca trainer and asked for a job. And it was a brilliant idea at the time, except for the one tiny detail that I was only 8 years old. But years later, by some twist of fate, that very same orca trainer apparently helped a group of enthusiasts set up a dolphinarium in Mexico. And I was invited to train as a sea lion and dolphin trainer. And I was so excited about the opportunity that I left high school to undergo training and work for the aquarium. And that experience really cemented my passion for working with marine mammals. But I realized that I wanted to focus on marine mammals in the wild. And to do that, I knew I had to pursue a degree. So I went back to school, graduated with a degree in biology, and wrote my thesis on fin whales of the Gulf of California. Now, my decision to focus on the vaquita began during my doctoral program. Although my original dissertation project was on humpback whales, I took a course on coastal policy analysis. And for this course, I had to write a term paper on the vaquita, which was later published as my first paper that you see there. And once again, fate played an interesting role. A friend and colleague who was also pursuing his PhD presented and secured the funding for a project that was remarkably similar to mine with humpbacks. And at the time, I was conducting my dissertation research at the Southwest Fishery Science Center in La Jolla, which, by the way, is probably the most beautiful research institute in the world. And I was working there on the guidance of Andy Deason, who was not only my advisor, but also a great friend. And after reviewing my term paper manuscript, Andy suggested I shift my dissertation, focus on vaquita, forget about humpback whales, just for the time being. And that's how I started. Now, this coincided with the arrival of Bob Brownell, who became the head of protected species at the lab. And Bob was and still is a passionate advocate for mammal conservation and probably written more about the vaquita than anybody else at that time. So it almost seemed natural that I pivot to developing a dissertation project on the population genetics and risk factors of the vaquita. And Bob has worked some kind of a mentor for me too. Now, I have to say, I consider myself incredibly fortunate to have met Bart Taylor at the lab, who not only helped me shape my career in conservation, but has also been my trusted friend and partner in crime for almost 30 years. And alongside Barb, I have been the privilege of working with an exceptional team, including Armando, even if he's not with us, Gustavo and Edwina, and collaborating with some of the world's best marine mammalogists. Together, I think we have contributed to the conservation of vaquita and other marine mammal species, I think striving to protect the most vulnerable among them. Now, the vaquita is the world's smallest cetacean, and you can see that on the image at your left of the screen. And this is also the most endangered marine mammal. Also has one of the smallest geographic ranges of any cetacean. It inhabits the northern reaches of the Gulf of California. You see that which is a region of, stunning yet dramatic landscape. And these are characterized by its rich biodiversity and striking contrast, really striking contrast of the desert and the sea. Now, the species was first identified from 3 skulls collected by Ken Norris in the Upper Gulf and formally described in 1958 as a new species. And it wasn't until 1979 and later in 1986, during the first field survey that were led, the first ones by Randy Wells, Bernd Versick, and Ken Norris, and after by Greg Silver, that the vaquita was observed alive in the wild, photographs were taken, and this probably marked the beginning of its troubled journey into global conservation awareness. Now, from the very start, the vaquita faced a singular and critical threat, that's bycatch. Bycatching gillnets for shrimp and finfish. No other significant risk factor has been identified contributing to its decline. Now, this video is of a vaquita that was bycaught in a Totoaba gillnet in March 2020, close to San Felipe. And this is exactly the most urgent threat to vaquita, the illegal Totoaba fishery. This is a large fish sought for its swim bladders in the profitable Chinese and Hong Kongese black market, which have been becoming a catalyst for organized crime in the region, probably since the mid-2000s. And this fishery is pushing the vaquita closer to extinction. Totoaba is endemic to the Gulf of California. It can reach 2 meters and 100 kilograms of weight, probably not that much now, but from January to May, adult Totoabas migrate from the deeper color waters of the central and southern Gulf of California to the shallower waters of the upper Gulf. And it's considered a vulnerable species by IUCN's Red List. And in 1996, a study by Armando, Tim Gerardet, and myself provided probably the first population estimate, and we consider it was about 600 animals that you can see in that graph over there. And this highlighted the bycatch gillnet was the primary driver of its decline. And by 2008, Gerardet, Italian, well, a bunch of us actually documented an annual decline rate of 7.6%, with the population falling to 245 individuals. So this rapid reduction underscored the urgency of eliminating gillnets that are used in the vaquita's habitat. And we have to do that to prevent further loss. But by 2015, we estimated that less than 60 vaquitas remained. Our paper from 1919 estimated that a 99% decline in 10 years, as you can see in the graph. And this is the fastest and steepest decline of any animal population recorded in the last 40 years. CIRA, which is the International Committee for the Recovery of Vaquita, and we helped to establish it in 1997, urgently recommended removing gillnets from the vaquita's habitat and transitioning to safer fishing gear. Unfortunately, a lack of socioeconomic alternatives, very importantly, safe vaquita fishing gear and effective enforcement, and the rise of this illegal Totoaba fishing severely undermined conservation efforts. That research that I mentioned of 2019 highlighted the critical status of the vaquita population, emphasizing the urgency for action. This led the Mexican government to implement a permanent ban on gillnets and promote the transition to alternative fishing gear in the vaquita's habitat. Unfortunately, gillnet fishing remains a serious threat and is exacerbated by insufficient enforcement of the ban and the persistent lack of alternative fishing gear. Now, this failure of the alternative gear to ensure vaquita safe practices reflects a concerning neglect of the responsibility of fisheries authorities. And by the way, I hope you spotted the vaquita in the photo in there. Now, just let me put this map again. What you see here is a zero tolerance area that that polygon brown, and that's our survey area, which we have the most vaquita sightings and acoustic detections. So in 2022, we published the findings from a survey, and we estimated that between 7 and 15 unique vaquitas were observed in 2019, and about 5 to 13 were seen in 2021 in that zero tolerance area that I show you. Calves were sighted in both years, and all observed vaquitas appeared healthy. While the process underscored the imminent risk of extinction without immediate and decisive actions, it also revealed that more vaquitas had survived than previous surveys had suggested. This highlighted their resilience despite this extreme pressure. Now, let me show you here those blocks with hooks. Those are anti-gillnet devices, and those have been deployed in the zero tolerance area that I showed you, and it's here, the one with yellow. These have reduced in this area gill netting about in 99%. And then you have that additional green area that it's also being deployed with, other anti-gill net devices. So in May 2023 and in May this year, we had 2 dedicated surveys, and we employed, as usual, acoustic detectors and detailed tracking methods on board research vessels. And we focused on the zero tolerance area. And in 2024, we also focused on this adjacent area, the green one that I just showed you. Now, these efforts documented vaquita sightings and confirmed their persistence in this limited but really critical habitat. We estimated that the minimum population size of 9 to 10 individuals in 2023, with a slight decline to 6 and 8 in 2024. And I just want to learn that these are not population size estimates, but the minimum numbers of vaquitas remaining. Now, the last sighting included an individual that we saw in 2018 and 2019, but we didn't see it in 2021, 2022, and 2023. But we sighted it again this year. Now, could these vaquita and other missing individuals that we identified have returned to formerly used habitat? Yeah, probably yes. We had just a recent acoustic research that indicates that vaquitas may be reoccupying areas that they last used in 2015. So this is offering a glimmer of hope for the species. Today, the vaquita survives as a poignant symbol of biodiversity crisis. Despite decades of recommendations, funding, and international attention, the species still hovers on the edge of extinction, trapped by these unsustainable fishing practices and the economic realities of the region. The challenge remains clear: ending bycatch through transitioning to vaquita safe gear, the enforcement of the gill net bans, and combating the organized crime that fuels illegal fishing. The vaquita story, informed by decades of scientific research, is both a testament to the power of the data and a sobering reminder of the consequences of inaction. If extinction occurs, it will not be due to the lack of knowledge, but I like to underline a failure to act on time. The vaquita may be a small porpoise in a remote corner of the world, but its story mirrors larger issues that affect us all. The vaquita isn't just a symbol of biodiversity, it's a measure of the health of our oceans and the choices we make about how we coexist with nature. Why should we care if vaquita goes extinct? Because every extinction diminishes the web of life that sustains us all. The vaquita's plight is not just about conservation. It's also a warning about the growing influence of organized crime and black markets in fisheries. In Mexico, the legal trade of the tuaba swim bladder has fueled a multi-million-dollar illegal industry that threatens not only marine life, but also the livelihoods of fishing communities. Now, this is a tragedy. This is an isolated problem. In countries like Myanmar, black markets exploit fisheries to fund conflicts, destabilize local economies and ecosystem. If we fail to address these illicit networks and their impact on marine resources, we risk losing more than just one species, we risk creating worldwide crime and exploitation that will overshadow sustainable practice and the rule of law. And you can see that in those reports, international reports on illegal fishing. Caring about the vaquita is caring about the integrity of our oceans and the communities that depend on them. It's about recognizing that proper measures like enforcing regulations, transitioning to sustainable fisheries, and dismantling illegal networks are essential for protecting biodiversity and peoples alike. The vaquita reminds us that conservation is not just about saving a species, it's about safeguarding the system that sustains us all. Now, to connect each of you individually, just imagine the vaquita as an ambassador. This tiny porpoise reminding us of our shared responsibilities. What kind of world do we want to leave behind for future generations? One where we fought to protect even the smallest and most vulnerable life forms, or one where we let them slip away? Caring about the vaquita is caring about hope. It's showing that even with a species that it's down to its last few individuals, we don't give up. It's about proving that humanity is capable of change and compassion, even when facing these daunting challenges. Now, what can we do to help? Before I go to that, just let me tell you about Project Esperanza, which is a multidisciplinary conservation effort to protect vaquita. The project integrates cut-edge technologies, including real-time acoustic monitoring, drone-based health assessment, and environmental DNA studies. This is to address the main threat to the species, as I said, bycatching gillnets. A core component of the initiatives collaborating with local fishing communities. I think this is the most important one, really collaborating with local communities to transition to sustainable fishing practices that benefit both the ecosystem and the livelihoods. And these are our collaborators for this program, and particularly Pesca, BC, Pro Natura, and Cetacean Action to move to alternative fishing gears. In addition to these efforts, we also participate in vaquita population surveys in close collaboration with Mexico National Commission for Protected Areas and the Sea Shepherd Conservation Society. These surveys are led by experts like Barb Taylor and Gustavo, further strengthening conservation through international and inter-organizational partnership. Now, sadly, for the time being, Project Esperanza is on hold because our budget is on hold, and very clear why. I'm frequently asked, what can people do to help? Well, support sustainable fisheries, make informed choices as consumers, look for certifications like that of Marine Stewardship Council or OceanWise that ensures seafood is caught sustainably. Raise awareness, talk about the vaquita, and share its story. Public support and opinion are key to the success of conservation plans. Advocate for stronger policies, encourage policymakers to support fishing communities in transitioning to sustainable gear, and strengthen enforcement against illegal fishing and black markets. Donate or volunteer, support organizations working to protect vaquita and other endangered species. I think every contribution, financial or in time, can make a difference. Be a global citizen. Recognize that the challenges facing the vaquita are not unique. Extinction is a global issue, and what we learn here can be applied, hopefully, to other conservation crises around the world. Protecting the vaquita isn't just about saving a species, it's about proving we can act in time to make a difference. Each small step we take adds up to a powerful movement for change. And I would like to thank you all for your attention.
Thank you so much, Lorenzo. I think that those final messages are often what we are saying as well at the foundation. You know, the biggest thing that we learned from Vaquita is to act earlier, you know, and there is hope, and there are important people doing important work like yourself all over. And the more we can come together and make an impact, the bigger difference we're going to make, like you said during your talk, together, all those small actions. I want to thank the audience for joining us today, and just another reminder that we're hope that you are inspired, by Lorenzo's story today, his firsthand, discussion about what it's been like to work with Vaquita over the years. Today, again, is Giving Tuesday. It's a really big day, a global movement to spark, positive change through generosity. And we do rely on donor support to establish and sustain these critical conservation actions through Operation Grace. And so today we are calling on all of you to help us save species if you're able, through donations, which will generously be matched dollar for dollar up to $200,000, thanks to a generous matching gift from our friends at Dolphin Quest. So thank you to them as well. And thank you all for joining. If you have also the capacity to share the information about Operation Grace with your friends and family, we're really trying to grow a movement to protect everything that is wild out there. And it will take all of us, as Lorenzo has talked about today, to rewrite the story of hope for these species, as well as the delicate ecosystems that they all rely on. So we encourage you to stay in touch with us. We are going to be doing this monthly, and we will have January's date and speaker out shortly. You can register for our newsletter, follow us on social media, tune in for monthly in-depth looks at unique species, and the opportunity to meet on a little bit more of a personal level our global collaborators, as Lorenzo was willing to do today. Thank you for being our guinea pig, Lorenzo. And I really just do want to thank you personally. It was very moving, and I just want to thank you for your service. You have dedicated your life to not only the vaquita but marine mammals, and it's because of your efforts, that I'm inspired and do what I do, and why everybody's here today trying to help. So thank you very much, and we'll see
Thank
all
you.
of you next month. Thank you, Lorenzo.
Thank you, and thanks everybody for coming to the talk.